in a nutshell, what we're going to look at in this demo is we're going to create ourselves a multi-branch pipeline. But what's in that multi-branch pipeline is a number of steps. So it's going to authenticate itself against DevHub. Then we're going to create a brand new Scratch org. Then once we've created it, we're going to set that Scratch org as default. We're going to create the password for the Scratch org. Then we're going to push our code, which is obviously the important part of what's going on, where we've made changes to the system and we're now pushing them to the Scratch org so that it looks identical to how we would expect our system to look. And then obviously we want to be able to test those Scratch orgs. So that's where Provar is going to come in. So just so you know, the actual Groovy call, which is the only bit we're really adding, the rest of it is a standard Salesforce DX, is we're actually running the call into the Provar ANT task. But the important thing as well is that we're passing in the username, because when we're running this script, we don't know the credentials in advance. Salesforce is going to create it on the fly, and we don't know the password. So we're going to retrieve that password and username, and we're going to use that as part of the script. And then the one step we need to make in our ANT task from a Provar side is we're actually overriding the concept of environments in Provar. And that environment is going to be basically using a parameter, and the parameter is obviously our overridden username and password for the Scratch org. So that's the only sort of update from Provar that we've needed to do in order to support Salesforce DX testing. So let's have a quick look then. We're now going to go into a job. Just so you know, again, the Groovy, you've got these different headings here, which is sort of showing the different parts of what's actually happening. It's quite nice when you look around this, because you can see the historical runs and you can see they've not always been successful. But what we're able to tell is, what got changed from a commit side, and just to give you a glimpse of what those parts look like. The actual Groovy script here from GitHub, you can sort of see the different sections. So down here, for example, we talked about the Provar bit. This is the stage run Provar test cases, where we've got our ANT script called, and that in essence generates us this sort of final step over here, so we can see the Provar test cases have been run. So I'm going to hit build now again, and what we'll see is, again, we've now got a blank string going across here. Now, what I will do is quickly launch us the DevHub org. So you can see here I've got a command, Salesforce DX DevHub. If I choose to run that command, they recommend using Windows PowerShell. It now logs me into Salesforce, and you can see here I've got a Scratch org. It's not the one we're going to use because it's from yesterday. What we'll see is we're in the process now of creating our Scratch org. So we've done our authenticate. We've now created our Scratch org. So fingers crossed, if I actually refresh this, we'll have another entry. So we now have another entry, and it's from 11:31, so that's good. So this is the org we're going to use for testing. And let's go back and follow what's happening. We've set it to the default Scratch org. We've pulled out that password because, again, Provar needs to know the credentials in order to sort of log in order to run its test cases for us. So this step here is the step, and it's actually quite verbose. If we go and have a look at the thing, it's actually going to chuck out a lot of information about what's being deployed right now. That's the push command. And again, if you go and have a look at the documentation, you'll see force, source, push, and the different command line variables. Again, if this is the information you need, and it's quite heavily documented. So here you can see all the different things that have just been deployed into the Scratch org, lots of different Apex codes. But that sort of means that the push is finished, and we're now running our final batch script with regards to the final step, which is going to be running Provar test cases. So if we go back to this level, we can see we're at that stage in the job. One thing I have noticed, I think I probably mentioned it earlier, is you really can see a variety of timing sometimes. This one actually looks relatively stable, but you can see here that we would expect this to be finishing in roughly 56 seconds, but we're on a minute already. But the reality is, for some of these tests, what we're finding is we're downloading our metadata on the fly. And this particular test case, just so you know, is actually not running a UI test case, it's actually running an API test case, and it creates me an opportunity. So let's go in and have a quick look at the opportunity where we can see the console output. Again, what we're hoping, given that went green, sort of hoping that is happy, and you can see it's sent out my JUnit results and also my email. So I should be able to go and find a new entry over here. And here we have very, very simple test just for the purposes of the demo, creating an opportunity at the API level. And again, it presents you the URL for the object we've actually created. So I think in a nutshell, hopefully that gives you a high level view of setting it up from scratch in Jenkins, but also how we can link this with existing jobs. And if we do have a quick look at the definition of our test case that we've got here in Dreamhouse, what we're able to see is this is really very simply set up where we can just point it at a single URL from GitHub, and that's all we need to do with regards to pulling down all the different Groovy scripts which all exist on GitHub for us. So very, very straightforward from a Jenkins side to get this stuff sort of working for us. And going forward, hopefully, I think a lot of people will be using this process for their end-to-end delivery